Let's get into it. 1, 2, 3. Just give me some more. Have it in. Give me some more. Just give me some more.
Well, hello, and welcome to My Whiskey Den, your favorite public access whiskey review show where craft whiskey is king. And we are all happy to have you here on this very special night. But Mike, before we go one step further and forget to do it, what do we always tell people right now?
Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, hit the bell notification, interact in the chat. There's very, very good people in the chat, as always. And don't forget to join us on Monday nights. Almost every night is a Monday night is a live and evening with series, like tonight.
Very true. Ben, do you want to introduce our guests?
Sure. So, interstage right, we've got one Daniel Whittington, musician, marketing school chancellor, whiskey enthusiast, one part of the dynamic duo of the Whiskey Vault and Whiskey Tribe YouTube channels. And stage left, we've got one Emma Niemeyer, an up-and-coming new head distiller with the Crowded Barrel, who is earning quite a big reputation here with your blending skills and your palate. So, big rising star, I think, in the craft whiskey community.
So we thank you both for showing up and representing Crowded Barrel tonight. We really, really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. Thank you for showing up, you guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone in the chat. I am not going to run down the 34 names I just saw fly up there. We appreciate everyone stopping in. And if you have questions, feel free to bring them up as you're going through. And since you guys have such a big background we could get into, I felt like when we were doing Todd Leopold, we could do a 3-hour show and very scratch the surface. So I think we wanted to kind of cut it down to just kind of the Crowded Barrel stuff, because that is what we're working on and what you guys are doing really unique, because you are the world's first crowdsourced whiskey company, which is really unique and is a huge play that a lot of people don't have. Now, when you guys started the vault, Daniel, or the Whiskey Vault, what was the original time frame for having a distillery? Because I know you guys usually have a pretty decent lineup of goals.
Yeah. Well, honestly, zero. There was no plan to have a distillery. That was at all. I started the whiskey school. There was a plan at one point, because Rex made me do the YouTube channel. It was his idea. Because he is a video editor and a marketing guy with video and video production. He's been making videos for clients for 20 years. And he was like, man, why aren't you shooting videos to promote the school and to teach the Psalms? And, here's how we talk about whiskey in a non-snobby way. I was like, because I don't know what I'm doing. He's like, it doesn't take anything. Just get an iPhone, set it on a counter, talk about a whiskey. We transfer it to me. I'll edit it and add some bumpers and put it on YouTube. Okay. And then some things happened, and by accident, we sort of took off. And then Rex was like, hey, I'm going to sit in on this because I want to test out some YouTube theories.
Yeah.
And so it was just a test. It was just like, it was an experiment. It was 100%, it was an experiment. And at the same time, I was working on trying to build a small distillery it was just going to be not open to the public, nothing to sell, a little workshop that we could use for the school, so that our Psalms could have a chance to come in and work on shit and see how the equipment works and do things. But then when this all took off, it changed the plans. And so it was about 1 year in, I think. Honestly, I don't know the timeline. When we started realizing, basically it was right before the Patreon launched, that we were like, we need a plan. Yeah.
It must have been 2017 then.
Must have been 2017. Yeah. And then it just got out of control.
Well, and I think in the best way possible.
I do too. I have a job out of it, so best way possible.
As I say, and just to stick on the campus thing just for a little bit, because I remember when I went there, when you guys had the first Bastards Ball, the whole campus is kind of designed to like spurn feelings of inspiration. It's laid out intentionally. If you've been there, very intentionally for what you're trying to come across. Now, when you're trying to put in the distillery and get its expansions, how much has that become a problem trying to lay that out inside the campus?
It's been a problem since day one. We're like, okay, we have this distillery and we're going to need at least X amount of space. And then Roy, the founder of the whole thing, is like, here's what you have. And we're like, okay, we will make that work. And then the shop where we've expanded into barrel storage and where we're moving production came available. And we're like, okay, what we really need is this. And then what happens, like, well, what you have is this. I'm like, good, that will make that work. Yeah, but it's been a real honor to be on that campus just because that space feels so good, right? And so we benefit from, like, just forget the distillery. You walk onto campus and everything feels different. And so it gives an added experience to, getting to come and drink whiskey sitting on that patio.
Yeah, and I would agree to that. I've been a couple places in the world where you're driving into them and it changes your mood. It kind of just relaxes you, or it puts you in a whole different mindset. And it is one of the places that happens too. So when you get a chance, stop out there. Mike's going to harass you this Friday, apparently.
I'm not going to harass anybody. I'm polite.
Sure. And you guys started off working on collaborative efforts for the most part. Which have been your favorite that you guys have worked on, and why?
What's yours?
I have.
Oh wait,
2.
I'm sorry. Hang on. I'm on dry week, so I'm drinking tea. But Emma's not, because she has to keep working, and she's doing barrel samples tomorrow.
I am.
For tracking progress on some very, very special things. So I'm pouring for Emma, and I'm going to start her just to see what she thinks with a Gordon and MacPhail special edition release of Glen Cap. So it's a 20-year-old Glen Cap. They proofed it down to 43 for some reason, and I don't know how many bottles went into it. But if you don't like it, just pretend.
Cheers.
That's a good one.
Cheers.
Okay.
Your favorite 2 projects?
2 projects, and I'll try to be quick because I do have 2. First is, and they both happened within the last 6 months. The 3rd round of the Texas Whiskey Festival one has been one of my favorite things we've done because it's been such a collaborative effort, and it always has been. But for this one, I got to be more involved in that process, so I got to kind of see it happen more as well. But we also have had so much interaction with the distilleries. We've all been a part of sampling everything from the initial rounds of everyone creating their own blends to voting it down. And so that's been a really fun project to work on with everyone. And then the second one was the more recent ytribe quest, where they were voting on a low wine mash bill from Balcones. And so they did some contract distilling with us, and we received the low wines, and I've been getting to do the spirit runs on those, which has been kind of also my first little step into distilling more, and I've really enjoyed that. So
It's the best new make that I have had so far.
Damn.
Like,
Nice.
period. It's new make I would sip gladly along with any whiskey that I've had.
Nice.
It's got these like really dramatic fruit, but chocolate.
it's the chocolate. I
But
get
with a little-
so much chocolate on there.
Yeah, that slight grass of the bourbon and the grain, and yeah, it's delicious.
There is this honeydew note that shows up really early on that I like on the nose, and it just kind of goes away as the proof drops. But it's when it's first starting to come off the still, taste a little, or I smell a little of that fruit, and I'm just like, I like it a lot. It's fun.
So Emma, as you're now head distiller, your approach as you're learning to make cuts and you're doing this, what's your approach to that? I mean, are you relying more on your senses, on your smell and taste there, or are you checking the proof and the temps and whatnot, or how are you approaching that? Do you like to see more tails work in or longer in the head cuts? Just depends on what you're doing. So just want to hear your philosophy and your take as you you working at?
Yeah, so when I first started, Deb had taught me everything about what she was doing with our malt whiskey we're making. And that was really helpful to have that knowledge with a starting point of, okay, this is our malt whiskey. I don't want to do something new with this. Like, I want to know what she's looking for, because what we're tasting in the barrel is amazing. And it's like, I want to keep going on that. And that was all just like, there are ranges for proof where I'm like, okay, I need to start looking for these notes in this proof range because they could start showing up. But it really is, with that and the bourbon, all the decisions have been made just based off of like the nose and the palate of it. And so like when we cut for the tails for the bourbon, there's a specific tasting note that Daniel doesn't like that was showing up later on, and it's like, nope, we don't want this, it's gone.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, cut it now.
Narrow. All right. We're already working with a small scale. But it's shown to be a great method for us because we're happy with the new make. And I've heard a lot of people say, if you don't like the new make, you're not going to like the aged product. And,
Right.
Yeah. So Emma, have you always had a knack for picking out flavors, or this something you just developed?
I don't know, because I don't think I ever paid attention to it before. But
You weren't like writing tasting notes of various Gatorades or.
Well, I wasn't really a picky eater when I was a kid, so maybe that had something to do with it now.
Yeah.
I do believe that it takes like practice, and I drink whiskey, and I don't often just sip on something without thinking about it, just because whiskey fascinates me. So I'm always just like, oh, this is something new. What did you give me? Where is it from? And, just trying to figure out all the little things about it. And I think that has helped a lot. Going through the whiskey sommelier program kind of started that training process, and now I just do that with everything. And then when I want a whiskey that I just want to sip on, it's usually something that I love, that I already kind of like have spent time studying it. So
Great.
Are you doing anything?
Deb.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say,
Go ahead.
You mentioned Deb, and obviously, as followers of the tribe and everything, we've loved her and miss having her on there. Who else would you consider has been strong mentors for you in this process?
yeah,
So I'm just. Fine, carry on.
this one. No, I've learned a lot from Daniel. Obviously, he teaches the whiskey marketing school, and have learned a ton. And I've had a lot of great opportunities just being around Jonathan and Robert Licorice, and every time I'm around them, I feel like I learned something new. And they're also like, I might go to them with one question or with one thought, and I learned so much more than I ever thought I would. And they're not, they don't hoard knowledge, which I very much appreciate. They are very willing to share and help, and I've learned a ton from them. So maybe one day they'll get bothered by all my questions and like block me from their emails, but it hasn't happened yet, so I'm just gonna keep on asking things.
Great. All right. Quick question from the chat. Kevin was wondering if you're sharing mash bills or yeast strain info, and I think that gets into more of the crowdsourcing. Where
Yeah, always.
Actually, sorry, I'll let you explain that. I didn't mean to jump on that. Sorry.
Yeah, we share literally everything. If you want to know the temperature that we did shit at, and exactly when she made the cuts and what percentage. I've always been mystified by people who keep those things secret, because I could go to we could go to Lefroy and we could talk to John, and he could give us like, okay, you buy this still, and then we buy this yeast, and then we buy this grain, and we take some peat from the islands, and then we take it all back to Texas. And we do everything exactly like they do it at Lefroy. We're still never going to make anything that tastes like what came out of Lefroy. It's just not possible. I mean, that's like saying in order to play like The Edge in U2, you just have to get the right pedals and the right guitar and the right amp. It's just, and then learn his part. It still doesn't sound like him. You know what I mean? So I've never understood why anybody would keep that shit secret. It's a mystery to me. But we share all our mash bills. If it seems like we aren't obvious about them, it's because where we tell everybody is in the Patreon.
Yep.
So if you're in one of the patrons, you know everything. I mean, you know where we got the grain. If you want to know how much we paid for it, I can forward you the invoice. So you can see like if you're getting a good deal. Like I regularly will get. Anytime we get a price sheet from somebody like MGP, I forward it to like 15 people who I know aren't currently buying MGP, but they're always looking for things. And they always want to know, like, are they sending everybody the same price list? And I'm like, well, here's what I'm getting. When it comes to yeast strains, they voted on the malt yeast strain.
Mm-hmm.
And that ended up being, I don't remember what it was.
I have all of this.
That was 2.5 years ago, or 2 years ago now. So it's...
I think, too, like, we're getting our wash from Acapon, and then we're sourcing low wines from Balcones.
Yeah.
So even though it's part of that initial process, some of those details of like specific strains, it's just got it written down. I just can't remember it. There's too much to do.
I couldn't imagine trying to keep that straight. So no, there's.
Yeah, well, I mean, we keep notes on everything that we do, but those are things that I'm trying to like track down and already added in. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So. Smooches, kids smooches.
So are you doing anything for Emma to train your nose to keep you up on things? I mean, aside from just enjoying the whiskeys that you like, are you doing any exercises to try to keep things up or develop that more?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to be taking Nancy Fraley's Nosing for Faults workshop later this month, and I'm really excited about that one. And I try to find workshops like that and just kind of take little classes that I can here or there to learn new things and learn from new people. And again, just a lot of like repetitive practice when I'm drinking whiskey. And sometimes I'll have someone pour me like a blind pour or a blind trio just to kind of practice if I can kind of keep up nosing it and making sure I'm still keeping up with my identifiers of like what's what, and just a lot of random things. And I smell everything. Like when I'm just walking around and I come across random like, oh, what is that smell? I just, the neighbors probably think I'm a little weird because I go up to their bushes and start smelling things. I'll just put it that way.
Well, I heard Zach play a game in the vault. We used to get together on Fridays. We haven't done it as much anymore because of all the COVID stuff, but we used to all gather, like the staff, a few of us on the staff would all gather at the vault on Friday before we went down to happy hour and just sit around and hang out. And her and Zach's the vice chancellor, Zach Smith, and always one half of the Whiskey Smiths, who created the Whiskey Smiths tasting sheet, and they're just all around whiskey badasses. And they would each go into the vault and pour something and then bring it out blind, and the other one had to guess from the whole vault what was in the glass.
Did anyone ever get it right?
Zach always nailed it down. I mean, he can get it from like as broad as like country to region, and maybe even like, okay, I think this is an American malt from maybe like one of these 3 places, and it just blows my mind.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
Danny,
but you keep doing that, and it works.
What's one of the tricks that you learned, Daniel, over the time that you found kind of like the most helpful? Like sometimes, like even if it's just like sniffing your elbow to kind of clear your nose and stuff.
Just a whiskey trick in general.
Yeah, just, there's something you learned that was kind of neat through the tasting process, or that helps you with yours.
I mean, the nose reset thing is actually kind of a good one, because that's not intuitive until you do it, and then you think, well, of course, my smell is ground zero. That makes sense, right? Why would like coffee beans or some other random shit be? I don't walk around with a dangling bag of coffee beans in my, maybe I should. That's a great idea. Yeah. Oh man, a whiskey trick. What's a good whiskey trick?
I don't know if this is a trick, but when you leave your mouth partially open when you're nosing,
yeah,
that's my favorite thing.
That was a huge difference. They're all now they're all habits, so it's hard to think of them as tricks. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I just do them all unconsciously. It's like saying when you drive your car. And like, it reminds me of when I first got my license. I was like 15. You know, everyone's 15. They're getting their permit or driver's ed. You know, I already knew how to drive because I've been driving since I was 12. But you still have to go like drive like they want you to drive. And I remember like I sat down in the car and the instructor was like, "Okay, you're gonna have to like every 3 to 7 seconds, you're gonna check all 3 mirrors and check your blind spots, watch your speed, watch your lane position, watch the car." And he names like 15 things, and I'm thinking, "There's no way I'm ever gonna be able to do this." You know, but now everyone does all those things just naturally while also like eating a sandwich and, you know, talking on the phone and doing whatever, because it's just you know. But I feel like a lot of the whiskey things in my world are like that right now, where it's like there's a lot of things I used to think about aggressively, but now I pick up and fill a glass and immediately do like 5 things in the same order every time, and that's how I check things out. So unpacking those is kind of hard.
You do AP comparison, which
Yeah.
has helped me a lot.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you. That's my favorite trick. Your brain's not really built for a standalone comparison. It's actually not designed that way for anything. Your brain is built for pattern recognition and comparisons. And so, like if I said, so Ben, how expensive do you think Ben's hat is? And Ben, you can't say anything, but everybody else, you think it's like reasonably real money, or it's like, oh, it's a discount hat.
Discount hat.
No, I think it's a reasonable price, but still okay. But no one knows, right? But if I said, whose hat do you think costs more of the 2 guys wearing hats? Now you can answer that question, right? Your brain is actually designed that way, because obviously Ben's hat is a nicer hat.
Thank you, sir.
It's true.
The same thing goes with whiskey. When you pick up something as standalone, just analyzing it by itself that's just one part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
To really understand it, you have to get outside of it and try it again. And I mean, we were doing that with the cuts, you know, like, hey, there's these notes in here, but how am I going to know when they're gone? Well, it's really hard to just randomly walk up to a still, pull a sample, and tell all the differences that happened in the last 30 minutes. It's a lot easier to pull a sample of what you know is heads, set it aside, $20 Ben's hat, set it aside, and then pull
No way.
A/B comparison, that's home.
That is awesome. A couple quick questions just about the distillery in general, and we'll get back into some more in depth. What are the size and types of the 2 stills that you guys are running now?
So the one that we're currently using is a 26-gallon hybrid from Minnetonka, and it's stainless steel mostly with a copper column, and we don't put plates in it, so we run it like a pot still. Okay. And the new still that's coming is from Abe, and it's 125 gallons, so it's a copper pot still, and it has a little brandy helmet, and it's almost ready to be here, and I cannot wait. So I'm excited. I've seen a video of it, and I'm very excited. So we're not running it yet, but we will be.
What's the ETA of getting it?
Next week.
Oh.
Next week.
Well, we just talked to them this morning, and they're looking for a truck.
Oh, yay.
So it's just as soon as the truck can get here. Okay. How's the Glen Cap?
It's pretty good. It's not my favorite thing. It's not something that I would randomly pick to sip on, but it's good.
So spoiled.
No, not.
All right, so do you want to follow it with your pick?
Yeah.
All right.
Should I or should I?
Yeah, why not?
Over there? Okay. I already know I like this one. It's an SMWS called Curry Corner, and it really does. You smell it, and I love Indian food so much. So it smells like all of those seasonings and spices, and just that mix of like heavy cooking flavors.
Oh, that's nice.
You can pour some in a glass and just nose it.
See now, even she's involved in it. There you go. Jolie was wondering, do you guys name your stills at all?
We're gonna. The tribe's going to have to vote on that one, though. We're going to have options. Because I know Dead was one of the names. Somebody wanted to name the new still Dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair. And it's kind of leading off that Kevin was wondering, with the crowdsource process, is that still open and active? And yes, it is, but you have to kind of wait and find your way into a position that's open.
Yeah,
on Patreon.
All the $4 spots are open.
You just want to watch and vote along.
Yeah, the $4 spots just mean you can always see everything that's happening and you can vote on everything. So essentially the process is anytime we come to a decision point, I need to turn my kettle off. Every time we come to a decision point, we put it up for a vote. The Patreon people vote on it. Whatever wins, that's what we do. To understand it, the current malt we're about to release here soon, the Magnificence, Malt of Magnificence. The group voted on grain, and then they voted on peat or no peat, and they voted on percentage of peat, and then they voted on the malt itself, like Marinus Otter, where we were going to peat it, and then they voted on the fermentation, the yeast strain, and the style of fermentation, and then they voted on what kind of still to run it on, wide cuts, style cuts, doubled, and then proof entry into the barrel, everything.
Yeah,
So,
that was something that like drew me to that as well too, because if you weren't sure what happens behind the scenes and choices, for 4 or 7, however much ever you want to spend, up to 1,000.
yeah.
You can be a demigod if you want to. You really get kind of pulled behind the scenes, and you get to see some of the steps that you might space on if you were just thinking about it. But there's a lot more that goes into it, and you get to be a part of it, which is cool. Now, not everyone votes the way you want them to, but that happens sometimes.
That happens. That's real.
Yeah, that was one of the questions I had was, have you ever been really horribly disappointed in choices that were made?
I don't think so. Have I?
I'm trying to see how you answered that question.
No. I don't think I've ever been. It's not what they choose that would be disappointing. It's more of because I always want to make sure we're making the best thing possible, and there's a certain level of like being dedicated to this process. Like we're crowdsourced. What you vote is what's happening, and part of me is like, oh, but what if I realize like a year from now that just shifting one little thing could improve it? Like, what do we do then?
We tell everybody. We do it from now on.
Yeah. So it's I think wanting it to always work out in the best possible way is sometimes gives me a little anxiety, but
You ever think about on your video, like when you're going over options, kind of laying into one a little bit more than the others?
No, we actually think very regularly about how to try to avoid it because it's inevitable. The moment we provide 3 options and anybody on the video gives a preference, it's over.
yeah.
And it's so hard to not like, even when we think we're trying to be fair, if we use one extra word on one choice, then everyone's like, well, obviously that's what needs to happen. It's like, no, we're trying to keep this. But I will tell you, we never provide choices we're not okay with.
Okay.
Right? Now, that doesn't always mean it's going to end up good, but we always provide options that we're like, okay, these are 3 reasonable choices. Right? So, it's like if we're going out for dinner, it's like, well, we can go fancy, we can go takeout pizza, or we can go, to Chili's. But none of the options are dumpster diving. Right? Like dumpster diving. Dumpster diving is not an option, right? And you may not want to do a really good takeout pizza. You prefer to go to a chain like Chili's, or you prefer to go to a fancy restaurant. But we're definitely not going to be like, what's the people who eat all of their food out of like rescuing food from dumpsters?
Oh,
Yeah, there's a name for it.
there is, and I can't remember it. Damn it.
Yeah, that's serious. They're hardcore.
All right.
Yeah, we're not ever going to do that. No,
Don't worry,
that's what Rex is doing with John. The dumpster diving of distillation.
During the fridge.
Poor John.
That got into one of my questions about what's some of the weirdest stuff you've actually gotten to distill, or most unique as and how about, were there any of them that you did that actually turned out well? Just as, I'm sure you do some runs on some random stuff every now and then just to see what happens. That might not be associated with the crowded barrel, but has any of them turned out well that we know about?
You haven't distilled any of them yet.
No.
The weirdest thing we made was when this is one that very well was just a fun adventure, and we have no idea what's going to happen. We still don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's getting older and older, and it's still weird.
It's still weird. I think
we voted on 12 different grains, 4 or 3 of each, right? 3 rye, 3 malt, 3 corn, and 3 wheat.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, malt, corn, rye. The 4 major grains. And then the percentage that the vote was of the 12 grains, we didn't take the top 3 or the top 4. We took all 12 and then made the mash bill that ratio. So it's a 12 grain. It turned out to be a bourbon, I think. I think bourbon ended up or was it? I don't even think one of the grains.
Butcher corn won like 21% or something.
I can't remember if one of them topped out at like 51. But whatever it was, there's 12 grains in that mash bill. And Deb distilled it.
She did.
And it's weird.
It is so weird. I don't think it would have gone any other way, but weird though.
Yeah.
It's just, there are too many things going on. So you taste it and it's like everything is battling for each other. I don't know. It's weird.
Sometimes it's nice when it's just a random fight, but you don't know who's going to win. You know, it's fun like that. What is the favorite thing you guys have aging in the warehouse? And what is one of the things you're most excited to work on coming up?
Oh, I know my answer to the first question.
It came quick, too.
That single malt right now is good. It's so good. And it's such a relief. I mean, the first time we took a sip and it was good, I was like, oh, God, thank you. I don't know how this storyline works if it turns out that the single malt of Magnificence is not good. I mean, we can make it work if we have to, but that's gonna be a bummer if it turns out like we can't actually make good whiskey. But man, so it just keeps getting better, and we keep taking monthly samples, and each time it's like, oh God, this is really good. And the most recent sample of the larger barrels, I was like, man, I drank this before anything in the tasting room, including all the Alliance releases.
Damn.
Yeah. So that's what I'm still looking forward to, is what happens to that mash bill on the new still.
Yeah, and in maybe new barrels.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Well, I am really looking forward to seeing more of the malt whiskey develop, but just to give a different answer, we have some new make we sourced from Scotland, from somewhere we can't.
We're not allowed to
we're
tell
not allowed
anybody.
to tell anyone. And we put it in a bunch of different barrels. And so we've got new oak, we have used oak, we have a rum barrel. We have, we have so many different types of barrels that it's in, just to see like fully like how many different things can you do with this? What will it taste like? And there are 2 40-gallon used Lafroig barrels that is currently sitting in. So I'm very excited to see how that turns out. Because it's not often that I've tasted something that it's clearly said, this is a used Lafroig cask. So I'm excited to see kind of what that does. And we've sampled them a couple times, and or maybe just the one time, and it was just too early, and so we just let it sit longer. So it's still got a ways to go, but it's turning out well. It's not bad.
Yeah, because those are all used oak. The progress on that one is really slow. So, which is great news for Texas. We need it to be slower. Yeah. But yeah.
So with the whole crowdsourcing thing, do you find that helps does it make it easier for you guys in the fact that they're kind of making the decisions, or does that in a backwards way actually added pressure that you better deliver on their decisions?
It's
sense.
way more out of pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would be so much simpler to just run a distillery. Not only do you have, I mean, the added complications are like, you can't just show up and do your job. You have to show up and be thinking like, crap, did I just make 3 decisions because I was trying to get shit done that should have been something we let them decide?
Yeah.
Emma.
Yeah.
And then once you make it, right now for us, because we're so small, the big problem is like, oh, they got involved, we did it, it's turning out great. How do we get this to everybody? There's no way. I mean, either we don't have enough bottles, or we have enough bottles, but we can't get it outside of our tasting room.
Yeah.
So
and these people are helping create these whiskeys, so there's a sense of ownership there that's like, man, I really want everyone to try it. And just Texas laws, man, if we could just ship. that'd be great.
you know what we need? We need somebody to volunteer to do a Smokey and the Bandit style semi truck
Across Texas.
That thing all the way up.
Yep.
We give them a Google map with 1,000 names on it, and we're like, good luck. You need a second buddy with a fast car.
That sounds like a Rex and John project right there.
That's right.
Down, loaded up and trucking.
So that brings up a question, which is probably, I mean, I know it's a sticky subject with a lot of people, but what would be your ideal situation for getting the bottles at the distillery to consumers?
Ideal?
Forgetting what's going on now and BS laws and whatever, what's your ideal situation for getting them?
We put our cases on a pallet, someone picks it up and ships it themselves so that we don't have to do it.
That's fair.
I was going to say,
Where we don't have to do the work.
yeah, I was going to say, if we could just ship all our bottles to the people who bought them, that'd be done. But yes, I would definitely, if that was legal, I would definitely hire a company to be like, all right, you're our fulfillment guys.
That's awesome. Gretchen was wondering, speaking of Texas liquor laws, have you changed the shipping and bottling limit sales yet?
No.
No. I knew it was coming up, but I didn't think it happened. And James wants to know if there's an update on the Silly Goose.
Boxes. We're waiting on boxes. That's it.
So our bottles arrive not in any kind of structure that really holds them at all. So we have to get boxes custom made, and they are still being made. We're about to get seals. I'm almost finished with that process. We're getting new bottle seals, which is probably way more boring than they care to talk about right now.
So the
mostly
seals
boxes.
project, some of the seals are this, some of
No,
the...
I've spent so much time on this. Like, I'm excited about our bottle seals.
You wouldn't be the first person who's excited about labels and stuff. We've had many people have fight with TTB rules, and just to be happy to get the right label on the bottle.
Yeah.
It can be a pain, but it's good to get transparency. It's good to get it right, I guess.
Or just find the one guy that lets it through. That's always a bonus.
Yeah, the guy's just like, sure.
Yeah, that's okay.
And then you show it to everybody else in the industry, and they're like, how the hell? You're like, I don't know, man.
John on Friday, Tom, Bob, whoever, go to that guy.
I got in trouble for bringing that up once. I'm like, this is illegal. I'm like, I just want to bring it to your attention that your label is totally not okay. But
they love it when you do that. Yeah.
I know. I was just being honest. I thought they might be getting in trouble later on. I'm like, well, if I noticed it, someone else has got to notice this shit. Now, with since you guys do cocktails and stuff inside the tasting room, what is your favorite cocktail to make with a Crowded Barrel product?
I'm gonna let you go first.
Honestly, my favorite thing to drink is the Irish whiskey that we created. It's just it's a real Irish whiskey drink, Irish coffee drink. Like, so if you're doing it right without a bunch of sugar and extra flavoring, it's just a shot of whiskey, black coffee, topped with slightly sweetened whipped cream. Not whipping cream, but like heavy whipping cream, like from actual milk, right?
Okay.
And you just add a little vanilla extract and whip it, so it's not overly sugary, right? So the only sweetness is coming from the whiskey and that just hint of vanilla extract. And then we do it on the rocks. So we do it over ice. And that cream just sits on top and just kind of bleeds through. And that's a good one. Can't really taste the whiskey at all, but it's a delicious beverage.
It is good. That's hard for me to answer. I'm not a huge cocktail person, so normally when I'm at the tasting room, I just get whiskey. But I do like, we have a back porch tea, which is like a black tea syrup kind of lemon juice mix with whiskey. And gosh, what is it called? What are they called? I guess the Peaches Ahead. Richard created one, and it has peach nectar in it and brown sugar syrup that's really nice. I like our warm cocktails, but really like Richard just will create he experiments, which is what I love, and he'll have like, I'll pop in or I'll be back there and he'll be like, here, try this. And so like, there are actually a lot of random creations I love, but I don't remember the name of them. They were like a weekend special and then they were gone. And but yeah, it's always nice to try all the different creations and whatnot. So
I'm pouring you another whiskey.
please do.
Please.
All right, John Verstreet.
Yeah. He was saying if the mom is in such a great place, why not dump and bottle? Or do you think it still has room to grow?
So we actually have dumped some of it because it is ready to go and we're waiting on bottles. And so we've got, in the next month or two, I don't know, I'm not allowed to say things.
I feel like I'm watching like when all of those movies where the kid who plays Spider-Man is giving away plot
are going
points.
off.
Yeah. No, it's totally fine. So it's not all ready. So, yeah. But remember, for the first year, we filled 5-gallon barrels, and so those barrels are now crawling in. Like the oldest one that we've been using as a sample barrel is almost 2 years old.
Well, it's 19 months old.
Yeah. So a little over a year and a half, and that's a 5-gallon barrel that moved really quickly, and it's already over oak.
Yeah.
And
that was a sample, like a test barrel that we just let keep going, and I was really grateful for that project.
Yeah, because now we sort of know, like, it went back, it came back around. It came back around again. So now we know, like, it starts to go sideways at like 7 months, but then at like 11 and 12, it wraps back around the corner again, and if you let it rest. And so the 15 gallons are still just in test mode. Yeah. Where it's just like, this is really good, but it's young.
Yeah.
But we have enough of the 5s that we need them out, because I think there are things I wish they had, but there's no way we're going to achieve it in a 5-gallon barrel. So for what it is, it's delicious.
Yeah.
And so we've got 3 rounds of that we're going to get to bottle, and they're all going to be around 8 to 9 months old, and that's young, right?
Some of the later batches might be a little bit older, but the first one will be like 8.5, 9 months old, and it's young, but it has some really beautiful flavors in there that I love.
We're going to be bottling all of those. Oh yeah, mesquite barrel. It'll leak like a sieve.
Yeah,
maybe you could put mesquite chunks of wood into a barrel, but there's no way you could make a barrel out of mesquite wood. It's just too dense, if I remember correctly. We don't believe in hiring gingers because we want to go to the good place when we die.
But they make such good whiskey.
That's right.
They hire their own. This is the way that works.
Jumping back on that single malt, we're going to bottle it in 50 mils.
Okay, cool.
And that was what we decided so that we could get the most amount of bottles out of like a 20-gallon run. And so the most patrons possible could get a shot at trying it. And we're going to charge for it what we would charge for a pour of it in the tasting room, which is, I think, $15. So it's going to be shockingly expensive 50 ml sample when you can go, get a $5 50 ml from, the local liquor store.
Right.
But it's going to be the first thing we've ever made, ever released. And it won't taste like that ever again because everything else is in bigger barrels or used oak and the still's changing. So this is a one and done. So all of those releases, I think they're going to be, we should be able to get around 1,500 bottles.
I think so, yeah.
Somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 bottles or so out of each one of those. So that should make it through more tiers than more people on the list than we've ever been able to do before.
So you're talking about hiring people, and so with your distillery employees, how awesome of a person is John Gunzel?
He's pretty amazing.
I thought he was in trouble a couple weeks ago with that tasting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, all you can know is John. Is that's that guy that used to work for us, right? Yeah. He seemed nice.
He seemed. He was friendly.
He seems friendly. Yeah.
I wonder how he's doing these days.
Yeah, we should check in on him. Yeah. Hang on. Hang on a second. Let's see here. Call John Gunzel. Oh, I got a low battery.
Oh.
That was a noise for the unemployment line.
You give him too much time.
Oh, that's good shit.
He used to be
voicemail.
He said he used to be hourly.
Yeah. No, John is awesome, man. John is the perfect example of everyone's struggling to keep their heads above water. We're barely making it through each week. Somebody shows up and just helps out. And then they do it long enough that you're like, shit, we really got to pay this guy. Because this is just, I'm starting to feel terrible about, he's doing so much. And so then I talked to him man, we can't afford to pay you what you're worth, but can I pay you some part-time money, just so I don't feel so bad? He's like, yeah, that's fine. And then he keeps going and he just is relentlessly handles shit. And eventually you're like, okay, we need to actually hire John, for real. And then there he is. And then his reward is he gets to distill durian fruit.
Or get ridiculed by Rex.
That's right. He's taking it for the team.
Yeah.
Since we're getting a little bit closer to the end, I know we each have a couple questions left. One of mine was, who are some of your whiskey idols or people you look up to that change your whiskey world as you kind of progressed throughout time? Even if it might have just been a comment that gave you confidence into what you were doing.
That's a good question.
Oh, I like that question. So just somebody who was instrumental in the whiskey journey.
Yeah.
Somehow. Man, do you have anything on right on the tip of your tongue?
I have 3.
Okay, go. Because I'm thinking.
Well, I already mentioned how much I've learned from the licorices, and so that stands because they've just been instrumental in developing more knowledge. And I really love following Marianne Eve's journey because she just has kicked ass in this world and just continues to go after what she believes in and wants to do. And I find a lot of confidence in that. And Davin Topol from Real Spirits actually told me, he reminded me of something, and I don't think he realized he did, but he was sampling some things I was working on, and I was like, what do you think? Wanting to get his opinion and everything. And he gave me some feedback, but he also said, remember, you're making this. And I'm paraphrasing, but try not to also get bogged down in everyone else's opinions. And it just reminded me whiskey is subjective. No matter what I make, not everyone is going to like it. Some people might even hate it and think it's shit whiskey, and that's fine. You know, of course I want everyone to love what I make, but he just kind of gave me some great advice, like stay true to what you want this to be. You had a vision for your blend, and try to stay true to that and not get bogged down and whatnot. So I just found that really valuable because it reminded me of like, yeah, definitely like get the feedback. I love having other people try what we're working on, all different kinds of palettes and getting different input. But man, I really was wanting to make this like certain flavor profile come through on this blend, and I like it. I'm going to keep seeking it. So yeah, dabbing as well.
Yeah, I think for me it's been just been all of the people, and this is so sappy. It's been all of the people in the Texas whiskey industry, like at every level. Work, you know, from the licorices to Jared to, you know, to Davin to Ty to, I mean, all of them. What I keep finding is that you get behind the door in this community, and everybody is like relentlessly positive and collaborative and kind and helpful and sharing everything they know and what do you need and supportive, and that's been amazing to me. Yeah.
And Ryan was wondering who has the best nose and palate at Crowded Barrel.
Some more? Some more? Yeah.
I play my best just because it's so subjective. So like I have I actually like to have when I have barrel samples pulled, I might have John and Richard and Madison all try them because they taste things different than I do at times. So it's like, okay, one of them might tend to, you know, taste the peppery notes more than I do. So it's like, I like that, but I don't want it to be overpowering to some people. And what else was it? Oh, I love smoky Scotch. And so some of our more subdued peated barrels, like it seems like nothing to me. And so it's like, is this one of our unpeated? Like I'll forget. I'll be like, am I tasting one of our unpeated barrels? John's like, no, I get some smoke. I'm like, I don't know. Let me check whiskey systems. And I look in the system and it's like, no, it is peated. It's just one of those like the experimental 25% we did. And it just, I miss that sometimes. So I like to have, you know, everyone has strengths to their palate and their nose.
Yeah, I think I was going to say the same thing. I think when it comes to making decisions on stuff, you always have to have everybody involved because some people are really good at broad categorization, narrowing things down. I think that's really my skill set. Like going in blind on something and taking us into very specific directions.
Yeah.
But then other people are good at like finding very specific things but couldn't repeat it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Jared was talking about this to me one time. They have people on their panels. Every time they're blending, it's all kind of stuff. They'll bring through a bunch of people. He says, we find that some employees are really good at like match the sample to the bottle. And other employees are really good at like saying what they found and getting really good tasting notes. But for some reason, they can't seem to match the sample. They can't match the two whiskeys up.
Oh, I totally do this
and
now.
so like everybody has a different skill set. So depending on what you're trying to accomplish with something, I mean, it's like when we were doing the very, very first cut ever on the Balcones bourbon, we were getting down to the tails and I was standing there thinking something is off. I think this might be the tails, but I can't. Is that too soon? Because this is really soon. Maybe I'm just being overly sensitive. And then John walked up and they said, John, smell this. And he went, oh, it's green grass. And I went, cut it. Right now. That's exactly what that was. It's green grass. And I was not it was not like crystallizing. It was foggy in my head until he said it. And then I realized that's what I'm smelling and absolutely cut that. And so you need everybody.
Yeah.
In those processes.
I still pull them in for that sometimes. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I feel like I'm overthinking it and I just want it to be perfect and I'm too tunnel visioned. And so I'm like, John, please, second opinion. Is it there yet or not? Like, I feel like it is, and he'll help with that. And so I think, yeah, just everyone's palate is so important in different ways.
That was kind of why we wanted to, it's kind of why we wanted to cut back a couple extra people on the show here, is because I didn't want my palate to be like taste blind or like regionally taste blind to something and be like, I think this is fine, and they taste it and like, this is crap. You know, like you're missing this whole barnyard note, and I don't know how you're missing it. You know, I'm like, I just didn't want it to be horribly far off ever. So I thought it was always good to have, like you said, a couple more people to hone in flavors or kind of help you get there, or maybe show you that you're off that day.
No, and you can have a bad day, man. It happens. Where I just can't seem to pick anything out.
Allergy season is the worst.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
So we've got, so Robert's showing up and the Crusaders at some point tonight, didn't he?
They are coming on after us. Their Whiskey Crusaders is on after us, and the Licorice Boys will be on there. And last week I think they just did their 2-year anniversary last year, so it was the first one coming out. So
we're gonna have to bail out here and go give them shit.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yes.
We can
Yes,
troll people. That's okay.
Yeah, we like trolling. So I ask you. Hopefully, this is not too long of an answer or too difficult. But so, if you had to start over right now, what would you do different about the distillery?
Man, nothing, because all the things I would change are things that we didn't have a choice. So I think we made all the best decisions we could at every point, given what we could do at the time. The things that I wish were different are that's like pie. You know, like, oh, I wish we had started with a building 10 times that size. Right? I wish we had started with $1 million cash in the bank and just bought all the equipment that we needed up front. Instead of like slow rolling equipment. It's like, hey guys, we really need something to catch the new make. Well, we can't afford it this week, so maybe next week. For now, just go get some bowls from the kitchen. We'll just, I think we can afford that next week. Yeah. So, I mean, there's nothing, of course, you know, if you're starting something, you'd always start with all the resources, all the options, plenty of space and plenty of staff. But I think there's no regrets.
That's good. I know I got one more, and I know Ben's got at least one more, but mine was for Emma on this one. I'm like, we've talked to several prominent people in the whiskey community after shows and stuff, and there have been a lot of people that have been very complimentary of your nose and your palate and the blending that you're doing. With the situation you're in, with all the whiskeys around you at the vault and everything, and what you're doing at the distillery, I kind of feel like the sky's the limits for you. Years down the road, do you see yourself still wanting to be a distiller, or, you know, maybe the hired gun like Nancy Fraley, because Winston Wolfe is going to need to be replaced sometime.
This is true.
I do love blending, and I would like to explore that more. When I hear about what people like Nancy Fraley are doing with collaborating and consulting, I love that idea, because you get to work with so many different whiskeys and so many different distilleries, and just, I think that would be a fascinating route to go down, because you do have a different level of collaboration that I also think would keep challenging me, because I would be introduced like, all right, there's a new client. What do they have? And it's a new challenge to work through. So I think that would be very interesting. And I love learning, and I love continuously kind of changing and updating things as I go. And so I do think consulting would be fun. That could be an interesting path down the road. I do love blending, and I would love to explore that more. I find learning to distill, and I would like to try my hand at brewing some as well. Just, I think learning the whole process start to finish is only valuable, and to understand what's happening early on will only help me understand how I can then create the best blend for a product. And so I want to get every aspect down.
And a lot of times with that, you'll know what's wrong too. Like if you were tasting someone's stuff later on, you're like, you're doing too far into the tails cuts, or you're stripping it too far, and you could nail some of those down. Couple other small questions. Ken was just saying, as a year into the whiskey world, how can I explain my palate and point out better notes?
Keep drinking.
Yep.
And honestly, I mean, you don't have to buy a shit ton of bottles. Find one bar with a good selection and try everything they have over the space of months. And then just, the thing is, you can drink for 40 years and not get better at palate or tasting notes if you're not paying attention to what you're drinking. Mm-hmm. So drinking on purpose, writing down what you're smelling and tasting, getting a sheet that lists possible smells and a tasting sheet, and going through it and being like, do I smell this? No. This? No. This? Maybe. Right? And then write down the things that you just said yes to and go back and see if you can still find them. Buy 2 whiskeys in one night and A/B compare the differences. It's literally just be a nerd. Yeah. just do the thing. There's no, it's like you can't go to the gym and work out to be a better swimmer. You have to swim to be a better swimmer. There's no tricks and there's nothing that you can do to be better at tasting and nosing whiskey other than tasting and nosing whiskey.
Yeah. Starting broad can help too. Like if you feel bogged down and like, oh, I can't get specific notes. Like you don't need to get specific notes. Just, is this sweet? Is it fruity? Oh, if it's fruity, are you getting like a red, rich fruit or like a citrus? And then just kind of narrowing down further and further just on the one thing to try to see how far you can get. And if you're just trying to get to like a very specific, it's like lemon peel right away. You might not get that mark, but if you start off with just, this reminds me of a citrus, it's a lot easier to then do the steps down the ladder, I feel like.
The only other thing, Ken, that I've done is when people tell you that a whiskey has certain notes in it, like several people, you can, like in the tribe, you'll get there. If they say it has chocolate, sometimes I'll get the whiskey and then I'll have chocolate or something else as I'm doing it to help pull the notes together, or just help formulate your brain to the senses that you're getting with some of the smells, even fennel and some other stuff that you might not be accustomed to. Getting some of the grain and crushing it up, giving it a smell, kind of just helps reinforce what you're getting every now and then. But that's super nerdy.
I was the first moment I was hanging out with Eric Waite, and I was like, oh, my people. Because he was talking about how for years he read about this one specific note in wine. And it was like a jam of some sort that he had never had. And so finally one day he just broke down and went out and tracked down and bought the jam. And he was like smelling, he's like, oh, that's what I'm smelling. And he said that, and I was like, oh, you too? I have done that, especially with English notes on Scotch. You know, there's like a lot of things, you got to go like World Market or somewhere to find these weird English treats, you know? And you're like, but then you get it and you see it referenced, and now you have a recall cue. Yeah.
I was going to throw in, just be intentional about what you eat. If you go out to eat, order things that you don't normally eat. You know, if all you're having is cheeseburgers and fries, you're not going to expand your palate or your experience to reference anything. So that for me, I love exploring food. So if I go to a restaurant, I'm usually ordering something that I don't normally have or I haven't had before, just to explore. And you're going to experience new flavors and new things that you can reference back to whiskey. And I think that helps a lot. And so for you guys, I want to throw you the softball question here for you, Daniel, especially, but I want Emma's take on it too. Tying in your musical experience, if Crowded Barrel was a specific music album, what album would it be?
Is this what we're going out on, music album? All right, Emma, you first. No, you first.
I have no idea. I don't know.
Achy breaky heart.
Sure.
How about just, is there a song in the distillery you listen to? Do you listen to music when you're distilling? Because we've heard other people that like they distill almost like a playlist for something they're doing, like to give them a feel for it.
That's so funny. I've listened. So more recently, if I've been distilling and I have my headphones in, I'm either listening to Taylor Swift or Elbow. which are two very different things. But,
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna try to answer the question as asked.
You can alter it. I mean,
No.
we're not gonna.
And ironic, I was about to pick a vaguely Taylor Swift adjacent. It's Ryan Adams, 1989.
Oh,
That is a great album.
That's
When
good.
Ryan Adams covered Taylor Swift's entire 1989 album,
Yep.
but in the style of Nebraska by Bruce Springsteen. Right? So our distillery is attempting to cover all of the greats. This is us doing malt. This is us doing
All the
malt.
grades.
It's a cover. We're a cover band.
but a good one.
But we're Ryan Adams cover band.
yeah. That is pretty good. Now, I had one other one because you guys used in the Bush rye the Kazuba Brothers rye. What did you guys think of that when you had it? Because we recently got to try some of it from Cat's Eye Distillery, and we've had a lot of people, like Jason from Ash and Drum, kind of. It took him 20 minutes, but he did turn full circle on it.
He was not happy in the beginning. And finally, he was like, okay, I get it now.
Well, ironically, that's where we got those barrels from.
Gene,
what's his
yeah.
name?
Gene Nastiff. He's going to be on next week.
Yeah. He's why we got him. He reached out to me and he was like, "Hey, man, I found these really weird barrels. If you guys want some, I'm getting them." I'm like, sure. Yeah. I liked it I'm not convinced it's actually rye.
It better be right.
Well, so all we know is it was made in Poland, and it arrived in Florida from Poland and when they reported it, they reported that it was rye whiskey.
Yes.
We don't actually know what the mash bill is, and it does not taste like any rye I've ever had before.
No.
No.
So the
No.
last time that happened to me, I discovered what I was drinking wasn't even whiskey,
That's also true.
and I nearly ruined an entire distillery.
Yeah.
And so I'm starting to think that maybe there is some neutral or sugar wash.
But it wasn't overly sweet. Or
No. I don't mean
No.
the sweetness. I just mean there's this there are these notes in there that are light and anyway. I'm not convinced it's what America would consider to be a rye,
Well,
No,
but I
I-
really like it.
I wonder what kind of oak it was in, though.
Yeah,
We'll find
we
out.
didn't get very much
Yeah.
information on those barrels at all. But the last barrel that we did was very much dill heavy.
Yeah, that's true.
Mhm.
So that one was a very heavy, like you have to like rye whiskey to like that barrel. But the others were more rounded with a lot of like tea notes to them and a lot softer on the dill. I don't know why that one barrel just decided it was going to taste like dill, but it did.
Hey man, you need barrels. I got the barrels for you, man.
Yeah, there's
sold it myself.
Yeah. There's like the Ardbeg of rye.
Look, if I could find a guy on the street in Austin who was like, the first one's free, I'd take a barrel from that guy. That'd save me a lot of money. I'm not coming back again, but
well, we've kind of run into the hour, and we don't want to run over too much into Whiskey Crusader stuff. And we know you've already taken a lot of time out of your day. We really appreciate it. And
Yeah.
you guys made it at the same house, everything like that. So we appreciate you coming on and spending some of your time with us. It was great. We really appreciate it, and giving some of the people that didn't know about you a little bit deeper look in some of the options that are coming out. What are some of the new releases for this year that are coming up for people to watch out for?
Yeah, our malt.
The malt.
Whiskey.
The malt.
yeah.
That's
And the
what I'm-
blend.
Yeah, there's a blend that I'm working on. I'm very excited about, but that's quite a further way down the road. But those two things I'm most excited about.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone in the chat. We appreciate you coming out, stopping in and some of the comments. Thank you guys. If you guys ever have anything you want to come on again, let us know. We'd be more than happy to have you. But we just appreciate you taking about an hour, some time out of your day. Like we said, we know how life works for all of us here. So thank you.
Cheers to you guys. Thanks for having us.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Everyone have a good night.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Let's get into it. 1, 2, 3. Let's get some more.